Today I'm going to make a video showing how I set joiner knives. This is a Delta 12-inch joiner, and I took the knives out of the cutter head to be sharpened. I'll take you over to the bench and show you. I just made a video on how to sharpen joiner knives using the knife sharpener from my planer. So I have two sets of knives here. They're both sharp and straight, and I'm going to show you how to set those, or how I set them. So I'll take you back over to the joiner. I have the gibs out and sitting here, and the first thing I'm going to do is clean these channels out on the cutter head, and then take some compressed air and clean, blow the channels out, blow the gibs off, and then start setting them. And just real quick, I'll explain how I set them. I'm just going to use a couple of magnets on the outfeed table, and then I'm going to use a dial indicator to set them. So I'll go into more detail when I start setting them, but what I'm going to do first is clean these up, and then I'll start the camera and I'll start setting that first knife. Okay, I have everything I need over here to start setting the knives. And before I set that first knife, I just want to talk about where they need to be once they're all set. So on a joiner, the outfeed table, once all the knives are set, you don't move that. I haven't moved this outfeed table, I think, since I set it up originally, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So the way I set them, I set the very top of the knife even or 1 or 2 thousandths above the outfeed table. So the way you measure that is, I'm going to take this wedge out of here. First, you need to find out where the very top of the arc is on your cutter head. This cutter head, I think, is 3 7/8 diameter. With the knives in it, makes it around 4, I believe. So I use a dial indicator to figure out where the top of that arc is, and it happens to be exactly 3/4 of an inch from the edge of the outfeed table. And the way this infeed table is set, it's also 3/4 of an inch. So it's an inch and a half exactly between the two tables, and that's where the very top of this arc is. So when you set your blades, that's where you need to set them to, right at the top of the arc, to make it even or 1 or 2 thousandths above the outfeed table. So you never move this outfeed table once the knives are set. The infeed table is what you move up or down to get your depth of cut. And I like to have the knives, 1 or 2 thousandths above this. That way you never have a problem running stock through there and catching on there. And I've never had anything catch, unless it was a piece of wood that was really twisted or bowed. So I'm going to start setting this first knife here. I actually numbered these gibs because I like how the machine was running. It's nice and smooth, and sometimes these are weighted a little bit different, so I just put them back in the same way. So I'm going to set this in here. Now, I should show you one thing. If you look down in the channel where the blade goes, there's 2 holes, which I'm pretty sure that's where springs go. I don't think they ever came with this machine, but some of the joiners, they do have springs in them to pop those blades up, and then you could buy those jigs for setting joiner blades, where you just bring it across the outfeed table. Those blades want to pop up from the springs. You kind of set them so it's the same as the outfeed table, and then start tightening up the gib bolts. And I'll take you over to the planer real quick and show you. On a planer like this, instead of springs, they have these adjusters. There's 3 adjusters in there to adjust the blade, get it close, and then you can tighten it down. But I'm not going to use the springs in this. I'll show you how I do it with a magnet. This looks like it needs to be tightened up a little. Okay, so I'm going to set the first blade in. Nope, still needs to be loosened. So when I put this first blade in, I'm just going to snug it up. I'm not going to tighten it totally until I get the other two in. Why is that not? Oh, these blades, I had the other set of, or no, these blades were in there. I'm going to stop the camera real quick. I think I need to back some of these gib bolts out, okay? Okay, one of those gib bolts was backed out too far, and that's why it wasn't allowing me to put this blade in. So I have them all set, and there's the blade. I can still move the blade around in here, but these are ready to be tightened a little bit. We'll snug it up. So I'm going to go ahead and, oh, I want to make one note. This, you know, the end of these blades are sharp also, and they're for rabbet joints, I believe. I never use those, so I'm not concerned with, you know, where they go side to side, you know, exactly. I am going to try to center this in the cutter head, but I'm not concerned with the very end of that. So they'll go in there, something like this. And I need to move that gib down a little bit, sticking out too far. I like to center that too. So that looks pretty good, something like that. So now that this blade is kind of loose in here, I just take these magnets. You get these at the hardware store, and I put a straight edge on them. They're straight. And I put it on there like that. And I'll put one on this side. And that's enough, that's powerful enough to hold that from dropping in. If I didn't have that magnet on there, it would drop in. So now, once that magnet's holding those, now I can really center everything to where I want it. I can move it around. Okay, so now I need to move the very tip of this blade to that 3/4 of an inch. Because that's where I need to take my measurements. Let me move this stuff down a little bit. So I'm going to rotate the cutter head until I see 3/4 of an inch right at the edge of that blade. And I'm going to put this wedge in there to hold it in place. So that's right at 3/4. And it's still holding. So now I'm just going to snug up these. And I do it real light. I don't tighten one of them real hard, because sometimes when you do that, the blade shifts a little bit. So I just want to get just slight pressure on a few of these before I start tightening them down even more. That magnet's grabbing the wrench. Okay, I have enough pressure on there to hold that blade. Oh, and one thing, you know, you want to make sure that these magnets are flat to the outfeed table. So now I can take the magnets off. And I'm going to check my distance to make sure that's good again. It's right at 3/4. So now I'm going to run through and use my dial indicator. I'm not going to flip this switch on for the magnet. What I'll do is I'm going to stop the camera and just kind of adjust this first, okay? Okay, I switched dial indicators. This one might be easier to read. So now that the blade is just barely sitting in there, you know, these gib bolts just have a little pressure on them. It doesn't take much to hold that blade there. And I'm going to check this one more time. See, it moved a little bit. So right there, I'm at 3/4 of an inch. So this blade, the very edge of this blade is the top of the arc. So that's where we want to take our measurements. So I'm not going to turn this switch on, the base here. I want to be able to move it. I zeroed the dial indicator out on the outfeed table. I'm just going to lift this up, bring it over, and just move it really slowly to the edge. And it's 2 thousandths over right there. So let's check down here. When you move this base, sometimes you have to zero it out every time, so I'm just going to move that. Okay, so that's 0. I'm going to slide it over. And that's about 1.5 over. You see that? I'll do it one more time. So actually this blade is set. Usually it doesn't work like that. It's 1 thousandths over. I'll measure this one more time. I bumped that. That's 2 thousandths. So that's close. It's 1 thousandth of an inch over the table here and 2 thousandths there. So this is set. So I'm going to go ahead and just tighten these up just a little bit more, not a lot, just to kind of hold them in place. And I'm going to move on to the next one. So I'll move it, and then I'm going to get this set up, and then I'll take another shot and we'll see what we have there, okay? Okay, I have the second knife set in there, and I have the camera set at macro so I can really get a close-up here. I want to show you the blade's in and the magnets are holding it up, and I'm going to lift up on this magnet, and you can see that the blade's coming with it. So the magnet's holding it in. So as long as that magnet's flat on that outfeed table, this blade is going to be in the ballpark. Okay? Okay, I have the second blade in there and it's snugged up, and the very edge of the blade again is at 3/4 of an inch, so it's right at the top of the arc. And I'm going to check each end. I'm going to zero that indicator out, slide it over. It's 5 thousandths over. Do you see that? I'll come down here. I got to zero that out again. Okay, that's right at 0. And that's about 1/1000th under. So this side needs to come up a little bit, and that I need to tap that down. Now I'm going to tap this side down first. I don't have to do anything to the gib bolts. I'm just going to tap it, and sometimes that'll bring this side up, but we'll see. So I'm going to put this block pretty much in line with the blade in just very small taps. Let's see if that did anything. I mean really small taps. That's a little over 3, so it did bring it down. I'm going to keep going. I mean, those little bitty taps, you wouldn't think it did anything. No, that one didn't. A little bit more. It's better to sneak up on it this way, because if you go too low again, then you got to try to bring it up. And I'll show you how to do that if it happens. So right there, it's at 2 over. So that's good. Now let's see what we have down here. It's right at 0. Okay, it's under. It's 2. Oh wait, let me recheck it. Yeah, it's 1/1000th under. So I need to bring this side up just a touch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the gib bolts on this end, 3 or 4 of them, and I'm going to bring, I have a hook pick here. I'm going to get under that blade and I'm going to lift it up, and I'm probably going to go past where I need to, but that's okay because I could always tap it down. So I'm going to come up a little You should be able to feel if it moves. That looked like it was right at 0, so I'm going to bring it up a touch more. Now the cutter head moved a little bit. I'm going to make sure I get that back to 3/4 of an inch. See, it moved just a touch. Okay, I'm right there. That's 1 over, a thousandths over. So I'm gonna snug these up real carefully. Then I'm going to check that other side again. Okay, I'm right at 0. It's 2 1/1000ths over. That's right at 0. It's right at 0. Right at 0. I want to bring that up. I'm gonna try that one more time. It's probably good that way, but I'd rather have it 1 or 2 thousandths over. So I'm going to see if I can lift this. There. Now I know I went past it, and the cutter had moved again. So I'm just gonna put that back to 3/4. So I know this is too high, but that's okay. I can just tap it down and sneak up on it that way. So it's 0. Here, we'll go here. Yeah, it's way over. It's like 20 over. So I'll just put this in line. Just start tapping it down. It's easier when you could tap it down as opposed to bringing it up. Look at that, 7 over. Oh, see, I went too far. I'm going to raise that up just a touch. Sometimes you have to do this a few times. I saw it come up, so it's going to be high, and we'll just tap it down. It's about 9 high. Look at that, that's 2 right there. It's 2 over. There's 0. That's 1 over. That's 0. That's 2 over. So that's set. It's within 1/1000th of each other. So, and it's slightly above. So now I'll go through and just carefully snug these again. And I'll move on to the next one, okay? Okay, that second blade was set. Now I'm on the third one. I want to show you something that might be an easier way to tap those blades down with less guesswork. So the blade, I just set the blade in there with the magnets. I back these gib bolts out so there's a little bit of tension so the blade's holding. And I'm going to go ahead and check it. And it's about 23 thousandths over. So instead of just guessing and tapping that down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the little plunger up so it's in the middle of the blade, so it's not right on the edge, because I don't want it to fall off that edge. So I'll set it right around 15, and then I'm going to hit this switch. So now I'm going to bring that back roughly what I need. I'm just going to tap this, and you can see that moving down, and that'll get me, let's see, there's 20. We'll see what that is. Might be a better way of doing it. Okay, there's 0. And that's 1.5 over, so that's it. So that's a good way of doing that. Just setting it, you know, not right on the edge, but finding out how far it has to be tapped down, bringing it back, setting it on that blade, locking it, and then tapping it down to where you need it. So that's at 1.5 thousandths over on this side, so that's perfect. So now I'll come down and check this one, okay? Okay, so I'm down on the other end, it's zeroed out. It's like about 4.5 over. So I'd like it to be 1.5 over. So I'm gonna knock that down by 3. So I'm just gonna set that there. Right about there. Now we'll check it. 2. So that's good enough. That side's 2, that side's 1.5. So this one's set. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more tension on these. So all of them are set, and there's enough tension to hold them. Now I'm going to go through and tighten them up. Yeah, I'm going to set this stuff. I'll stop the camera and set this stuff aside, okay? Okay, I already went around the 3 blades and snugged them up. I'm going to go around one more time and really tighten them. And I always start on the middle of these, and then they move out. It's the same way I do it on the planer. Okay, I'll do the last one, and then we'll check it again, okay? Okay, I tightened the rest of them up, and I checked them with the indicator again, and just the process, I think, of really cranking those down and tightening those, it tends to move these just a little bit, 1 or 2 thousandths, and that's what it showed on the indicator. But that's still really small. You know, you've got to try to get them as close as you can, and then when you tighten them down, if they move just a little bit, you'll just have to live with that. I'm sure this is going to cut great. I mean, they're all within a few thousandths of each other, and it's just slightly above the outfeed table. So I'm going to put a little bit of paste wax on here, put the fence back on, and we'll start her up and run a board through there, okay? Okay, there was one thing that I didn't address that I want to talk about real quick in setting these knives, and that is how high above the cutter head body to set the tip of the knife, which is basically the same as how high to set the outfeed table in relation to the body of the cutter head. So what I did was I took the manual out, and it says right here that they want you to adjust the height of the outfeed table to be 30 thousandths above the cutter head. And then down here it says adjust the height of the outfeed table to be 30 thousandths above the cutter head body. So it's basically the tip of the knife and the outfeed table, they want to be 30 thousandths over the body of the cutter head at the center, at the top of the arc. So I thought I'd do that measurement. I have a couple wedges in here to hold it, and I put a little tick mark right at the top of the arc right here. So I'll just show you. I have the indicator zeroed out, and you can see it dropped down to 70, which means it went down 30 thousandths. So after all these years, when I set that outfeed table, I must have, done it using the manual. I set this outfeed table 30 thousandths above the cutter head, never moved it, and it's still there exactly. So when I set the knives, I just set it to the outfeed table. But yeah, I guess you have to start somewhere, and different joiners, that might vary a little bit. So I just wanted to start the camera and film that. All right. Okay, I waxed the table, put the fence on, and I have a piece of rough sawn, a small piece of rough sawn poplar here. I'm just going to run that through. So I have the dust collector switch right here, so I'm going to turn that on. So that'll do it. Seems real sharp. And I usually set this infeed table for a 32nd of an inch cut. That's usually what I have, unless I have a board with a big cup in it or a big twist. I might go a little bit more. But that's it. They're in there and they're all set and sharp. So that'll do it for the video on how I set joiner knives. Okay? Okay, one last clip I'm going to run this piece of mahogany through. You can see it's rough sawn.